What's going on, everybody? My name is Ryan Snod, it rhymes with odd, and welcome to part 3 of my 4-part series chronicling all the stuff that went into getting a commercial studio space for my business. In this video of part 3, we're going to be talking all about the room that I'm in right now, which is my Rentable podcast studio. In the other parts of the series, you're going to see the complete overhaul of this space, but this initially was a massage room, and we ended up converting it into a very nice to look at, nice to listen to podcast studio. So if you're wanting to see more about the gear and all the stuff that went into the space in terms of the acoustic foam, the mics, the table, the walls, all the different stuff, make sure to check out part 4 for that. But in this video, in part 3, we're going to talk about how this is actually a revenue generator for me and why I decided to put a podcast studio in my commercial space. And give you some ideas on how you could monetize your own space if you have an extra room like this and you want to try to make some extra money every month from it. So before we jump into the details of the business stuff, what you're looking at in frame right now is where we're at in the podcast studio. There's a table right here. I've got a seat across the seat from me here, and this table could probably fit 4 people on here, including the 4 different mics where people are looking at each other from across the table. On the wall behind me, we have padded acoustic foam to help absorb some of the noise. I have a key light above me. I have a kicker hair light behind me. And I also have a floor lamp that's back here that is orange to kind of illuminate the background a little bit. In terms of the audio equipment, I'm using a Rode pod mic with a pop filter on the end of it. Here's what the mic looks like and sounds like without the pop filter, but I like just putting this on here for a little bit of extra absorption of those P's and the C's and the p noises. The mic does say it has a built-in pop filter, but I prefer to have this on here. And when most people see this mic, they know which mic it is, so it gives a little bit of a lure on which kind of mic it is. And then for the audio recorder, we are recording into the Zoom PodTrack P4, which is right here. There are a ton of ways you could spend way too much money trying to rig out a podcast studio like this with the top-of-the-line gear. So what I did was I researched the gear that I wanted to buy and made sure that I got top quality, but I wasn't getting scalped on price. Most people end up getting the Shure SMB mics, for example. Those are on about $400 per mic. For this mic right here, it retails at $99. So I could literally get 4 mics for the price of 1 for the Shure SMBs, and they're very, very comparable when you listen to them. Not to mention, I can take a bunch of the pops and the Cs and the little tiny things out of the audio to make it sound really good in my editing workflow as well. So that's why I went with the cheaper, still high quality stuff. So that's an overview of some of the gear that we used in this podcast studio, but now let's jump into the business side. I wanted to build out a professional podcast studio for a couple main reasons. Number one was I was doing remote podcasts for clients at the time when I decided to get this space. And it was a huge pain in the butt. Every week I would go to my client's house, I would drive there, I would set up for 30 to 45 minutes to get everything ready. We would record the audio and the video for about an hour for the podcast. We'd tear it down, we'd talk for a while, I would drive back. And after all that was done, I had spent 4 to 5 hours of my day recording one podcast interview. So in this new setup, the clients can just come here, sit down, record for an hour, and leave. Everything stays stationary, and it speeds the whole workflow up for everybody. Another benefit for me was I wanted to launch my own podcast for years, but I didn't have a good setup for it. And if I was going to do it, I wanted to do it right and make sure that it looked and sounded really professional. So by having my own podcast studio here, I could start my own show, which is the Rhymes with Odd podcast. So make sure to go check it out on Apple iTunes and Spotify and all the other places. I could just come in with my interviewee, sit down, ask my questions, hit record, and make it really, really simple for myself. Outside of just my one client that I had at the time and my own podcast, I wanted to have this be a space that I could actually monetize long term and make it so I could pay for my rent or even make me an extra revenue stream on top of what I do outside of client work. So here's how I went about doing that. Currently, I have 3 offerings that people can do, and I'm tailoring it more towards businesses and brands. The first tier is just a straight up rental of the mics, the room, and 1 unmanned camera. People come in, they sit down, they do their entire recording, and they have just 1 wide angle lens camera that they can document kind of the whole conversation that's going on. There's no one manning the cameras and there's no editing. So basically when they're done, all the files will get sent to them over a Google Drive or just sent to them on a thumb drive. So that's the lowest package that I offer. The next tier up had some more features included to it. In that middle tier, there's going to be a 3 camera angle setup. So there'd be one where I'm talking right here. There's one for my guests that would be pointing at them, and then 1 wide angle of the entire room so we can cut between people that are talking and keep the visual very interesting. Included in that is an episode recap video for YouTube where we multicam cut back and forth from people, and they also have the flexibility to add in social media teasers in there as well if they want to do things for TikTok, Instagram, and whatnot. So those are the first 2 tiers, but I think the real strength for my business comes from the marketing side because I've produced so many podcasts for clients over the years, and I know a lot of the tips and tricks on how to get them grown on social media and get listeners engaged. So that's where my third tier comes in, which is my marketing retainer package for my podcast clients. In that package, we do at least 4 episodes a month, so 1 weekly show, and usually we'll batch shoot them, so we'll do them back to back to back in one day. We have a 3-camera setup. We can do up to 4 microphones and a 4-person conversation, and we include a ton of social media cuts. So not only are we providing the space, the equipment, and the editing, but we're also going to be providing a marketing strategy for them to grow their show. So this could be having a blog created that is auto-transcribed from the conversation so they can get ranked in search and SEO. This could be creating more and more social media clips or even a clips channel for their YouTube channel to help gain authority and gain attention. So we could even reach out on behalf of the show to try to coordinate and schedule new people for those interviews. Basically, that top tier package is tailored towards businesses or brands that have wanted to start a podcast, but similar to me, they had a lot of reservations about making sure that the quality, the lighting, and the audio sounded and looked as good as they wanted to if they're going to do it. So obviously the marketing retainer has the most involvement and it's going to be the highest price of those 3 options. Here's some things to consider if you're wanting to do this for your own studio. Let's just say that you're going to charge for that first tier of a package where it's just the mics and a wide angle camera, like $100 per hour to do that. So they essentially get access to over $10,000 worth of gear for $100 in this situation. And let's assume that your client wants to do a recording every single week. So right there's $400 a month that you're getting from one podcast client. Say you landed 2 people that do that. Now you're up to about $800 a month just on that base level bottom tier package. And then obviously if you get a 3rd, 4th, 5th, and so on, you're going to be making thousands of dollars a month from offering this service for people. So for me, this made a lot of sense because again, even if I just have the one client that I already had locked down use my space, that's a benefit to me because I get all of my time back and I get to not have to drive all over the place and I can stay stationary in my office so I can be more productive. And second, I can have a space that I can do for my own show and showcase the entire studio every time that I make a show. So it's kind of like a cross-marketing effort without even really trying to. You're just using the space that you already allocated for that task. And then the third kind of collateral benefit from all that stuff is that the guests that I have on the show a lot of times love the studio. They love coming in and the experience, and they get to test drive what it's like to be on a podcast. And if they wanted to launch their own podcast and they come on mine and realize that my studio is a rentable place that they can also use, it's just a natural funnel that drives people to come in and check it out. If you're also considering doing something like this, I encourage you to try it out. This space is not very large. I would probably guess it's like a 5x4 room, maybe like 20, 30 square feet, not super large, but in the future, we've also talked about mounting a TV right here on the wall so that can come down. So then people can put their podcast logo on the wall or on the TV and just add a little extra layer of branding as well. But the big picture vision for this room specifically is to grow my podcast retainer clients to 4 to 5 per month. So we're doing a weekly show for them for 4 or 5 different people, and we're cutting a bunch of social media clips for them, blog posts, we're helping reach out on behalf of them for guests and a bunch of other stuff like that. And for me personally, the way I priced my podcasts is that once I'd have a couple retainers like that, I would be justified to hire someone full or part-time to come in and manage the entire studio production side of the business so I could step away and focus more on my commercial clients. And podcasts, in my opinion, aren't super tech heavy. Once you know how everything works and you just hit record, you just have to have somebody babysit the cameras and the mics to make sure they look and sound good. So it'd be a great opportunity for a college student or somebody who's just getting into the industry as kind of an entry-level job to kind of get their feet wet, but also run it for me and make sure that I could still make a profit on the back end so I could focus on other stuff that I'm doing in my business. So hopefully this helps you guys understand just if you're wanting to start your own podcast studio, rent it out to people, but also how it fits in my business model and how you could adapt it to your own as well. If you guys want to learn more about the podcast studio or see it in action, make sure to check out the Rhymes with Odd podcast, my personal podcast that I just launched in August of 2023. But till next time, my name is Ryan Snod. It rhymes with odd, and we'll see you in the next video. Peace.